Well, baby, I'm on it with a bottle of wine and an old dirt road. Are you ready to go?
Hey, thanks everybody for joining us today on Live Music Nation podcast, County Fair edition. Today we're with Ben Hollis from Menard County Fair. Ben, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Ben, give us a little background on you. Where did you grow up, and then talk about your career a little bit, and then your progression with the county fair.
I grew up right here in Menard County in Petersburg. Been here my whole life. My career is kind of twofold. I started working for the sheriff's office at age 18 in the jail, and I've been there ever since, off different roles at different times. I'm now the chief deputy, meaning the number 2 in charge, but I also farm on the side. So I've got an ag background. I've got family farm ground that I farm. And so between those two things, I stay pretty busy.
Okay, very good. Describe your fair for us. I'm sure
Well, baby, I'm on it with a bottle of wine and an old dirt road. Are you ready to go?
Your fair.
Yes, we're a 15-member fair board. I can't say enough good things about those people.
Yeah.
We still are heavily involved in livestock showing, 4-H aspect to the best we can be. 4-H, unfortunately, over time has seen a bit of a reduced involvement or participation, I should say. But I surprisingly, or in a good way, I was at a 4-H meeting not that long ago, and I was amazed at the number of new kids they had involved. It was a lot. So that was good to see. And I think they're doing a good job of teaching people that 4-H isn't just showing cattle or showing hogs, or, there's so many different avenues. So.
No, that's good. So I'm kind of, let's play on that a little bit. I think initially maybe you can agree with this or not, but the size of the American farm family, like the acreage, it has increased, but the number of individual farms has decreased. And
Right.
But what we're also seeing now is a trend for the city kids to have really become involved in 4-H to the point where you're seeing a trend of urban actually getting back into 4-H and really starting to climb back into the agricultural side and the livestock side.
Yes.
Maybe on a small level, but to the point where they've got a bucket steer in their backyard, and
We've seen that, and we've seen also farm families that have the facilities to, facilitate livestock, pairing up with maybe families that don't, and they're working on these joint projects, where, hey, where a girl's best friend wants to show a hog, so they're letting them, raise it at their farm, yet, when they routinely wouldn't have that option because of, where they live. So we've seen a lot of that. That's been a good thing. And I think, livestock showing, it's about like a lot of other things in the world. It's become super competitive outside of the smaller county fair levels. So you have a different level of people showing livestock that are competing, sometimes nationwide. But we've seen more of the grassroots participation kind of hang in there at a status quo level, which we're glad to see that, because for many years it was going down, and I think it's kind of plateaued, if not started to raise up. 2021, our animal entries were the biggest they'd been in 15 or 20 years. Last year didn't quite get to 21's level, but it was right there with it. And some of that's weather or fair schedules. There's a couple other fairs in the central Illinois that most often we don't overlap with, but there's times that we do, just the way the calendar falls. So there's so many variables in that factor.
What about COVID? Did you think that COVID maybe helped in the long run? People maybe got a little nervous about supply and demands and shortages, so they maybe wanted to start raising their own beef again or their own hog?
Absolutely, I've seen that, or if nothing else, an increased demand to buy their produce and their meat locally.
Sure.
For a long time, I think it's kind of getting leveled out now, but for a long time, if you wanted to get a steer or a hog butchered, you might be waiting a year to get an appointment. The meat lockers locally couldn't keep up. COVID was a challenge, obviously, for everybody, especially in this industry, where I felt the worst for the fair industry was, we were able to kind of weather the storm, but what hurt a lot of them was your vendors, your carnivals, your sound production companies, all those different ancillary people that we use every year to put on a fair. They were just left. I mean, yeah, there was options, PPP loans and things like that, but it hurt them. That's who I really felt, for. We did something kind of unique here. Obviously, when summer of 2020 rolled around, we felt that our best course of action was to not have the fair. So we didn't, which was the same as every other county in our area of Illinois that I'm aware of. There might have been one or two outliers. But we threw together an abridged version and held it on Labor Day weekend, albeit some criticism from some. But we learned how we could still try to have something and stay within the COVID guidelines to an extent. We reduced the seating in the grandstand. We ordered extra hand washing stations. We set up, kind of guided paths. Like if you got to go in this way, you got to come out that way. We increased our sanitation. We rented machines to sanitize our bathrooms. And it was, quite honestly, the attendance was gangbusters. We had people more than we ever thought we would. And the biggest thing we took away from that weekend was so many people that weren't from here, because we were the only ones doing anything, just stopped us and was like, thank you for doing this. This was good for my health. This was good for so many different things. So it made the criticism kind of quiet down a little bit, It
always helps. Yeah. Very good. So tell us about your fair. What does it look like visually? What events do you have? What are some of your highlights?
We're a 32-acre fairgrounds, which that includes our parking area. We're out in a rural area, a little not far from town. Been around since 1855 was the first fair. We run third to fourth week of July every year, depending on how the calendar falls. We're 6 days. We were Tuesday to Sunday. Of course, every year, Tuesday nights, Queen pageant. We open with that. That's a staple that's always going to be there. We still have harness racing. Not as many fairs have harness racing as used to. We don't have it at the level we used to have it at, but we have it one evening or one afternoon, depending on how the schedule falls. Rodeo, we started doing rodeo again. Of course, what's a fair without a demolition derby and a tractor pull? And we started doing national concert acts about this be going in 9 years ago, 2014. The last time they'd had anything like that was 1982.
Wow.
So there was quite a dry run there without anything like that. And the last couple of years have been very good to us as far as that goes.
Who are your attendees? Are they all local? Do you draw from out of town?
We draw from out of town anymore. I think it took us several years to get more attraction. I think people follow us now. Social media is a great tool. I mean, you can reach so many people with social media at a fraction of the price that you would spend on radio and don't get me wrong, I'm not saying we shouldn't advertise the radio, we do, but you can target so much with social media that it really is, it's a tool that you absolutely have to use. We had Parker McCollum in 2021. We had people from all over the place, Missouri, Indiana, Iowa. I mean, it was a big night, So, and we booked Parker when the time was right.
Sure.
I don't know that we would have afforded his cost if we'd have had to pay what he was getting the night he showed up.
Yeah.
So
that's why we have contracts, is it not?
Yeah.
No, and that's kind of why we're doing what we're doing, because what we find is that almost every fair is a little bit different than another one. I mean, there's all the similarities, but like you just talked about harness racing, there are people that have never seen a harness race, and they might. That's why. And so we've had a lot of people say, "Hey, well, can we do this closer in the spring and talk about the fair?" Well, yeah, you can, but not when people are planning their summer vacations and their trips. And that's what our hope is that because we are in this fully open society again, that people do want to travel. They still want to get out and they want to see something new. And your fair obviously offers things that some fairs don't, and vice versa, you know, and so that's great. Let's have a couple of fun questions since we talked about Parker McCollum a little bit. What's the best what's the best concert you've ever seen in your life? You personally, not just at your fair, but anywhere.
I'd have to say Garth Brooks.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, that's he's a showman. So
perfect. Okay.
Not taken away from anybody else, but if I had to choose, I'd say Garth Brooks.
All right. So, and if you could have one act at your fair, dead or alive, who would you book?
Probably Garth Brooks.
Probably just bring Garth.
Yeah. I don't think we have the infrastructure to handle that, but if in a perfect world, yeah, that'd be pretty neat.
He would just play every night of your fair. That would probably work as it goes through there. Very good. Ben, how do people find out more about the Menard County Fair?
We are on Facebook. It's just facebook.com/Menard County Fair. And then we have a website, again, menardcountyfair.com. And, all that stuff will start getting updated late winter, early spring. But I do want to say, the county fair industry is such a tight-knit group of people. And I've talked to a lot of other fairs over the years that maybe wanted to start expanding or doing more things or bringing in national acts and things like that. And all I can say to them is hang in there. It's not easy. It's a lot of cold calling. It's a lot of sponsors you got to go and beg, borrow, and plead to. And your first year, you think you're going to hit it gangbusters, and you don't. I mean, you do okay, but it's not what you think you're going to have. And hang in there, because when you hit it and you look out and there's 4,000 people standing in your grandstand, it's a pretty cool feeling. And that's, I've got to give an ode to my fair board. When I got on the fair board, we were at 8 o'clock fair, 8 p.m. at night. We were done. We didn't, and that's not a knock at anybody in the past. The guys had been there a long time and kept things going, but it was time we had to evolve. We had to adapt. And they took a chance with some of mine and a few other fair board members' crazy ideas, and they worked their tails off. That concert day is a 7 a.m. to 2 or 3 a.m. day. And you got guys that are my age, and you got guys that are 65, helping. And I couldn't do without them. They're bar none, some of the best friends I have in life are from that fair. So
no, that's perfect. That's perfect. Live Music Nation podcast. We're with Ben Hollis, Menard County Fair. Check him out on Facebook and go see him this year.
Thank you, Jake.
Well, baby, I'm on it with a bottle of